I've been loaned this lovely Jet JS600 TGR, and in my 25-ish minute video, I said that this guitar is really, really good for its price, and it punches well above its weight. But is it as good as an American-made Fender Stratocaster? Of course not, but let's see how close we can get. This is a little shootout video. Pew pew. Hi folks, hope you're doing well. My name is Marc Gallagher. I am a professional musician here in England, and like I said, I've been loaned this guitar by Jet Guitars distributor Hal Leonard, and I did a full video review on this, which is about 25 minutes long, in which, looking at the guitar on its own merits, praising it for what it is rather than judging it for what it isn't, this guitar is really good for the price. It's really high spec. You're getting maple top, mahogany body, front binding, locking tuners, and all of this for just £459, which is competing with the Squier Classic vibe. It is about £100 saving on the Fender Standard Series. But I thought it would be interesting to see how close a highly spec guitar like this could compete against an American-made Fender Stratocaster. This is my American Special. This is a really, really lovely guitar. I might find the finish a little bit dull, but to play and in terms of how it sounds and feels, this is truly wonderful. And I wanted to put these guitars side by side along with another Strat of mine. This is a Fender ST62, I believe, Stratocaster. It's a Japanese-made Strat, and it's really, really nice. And it's had a bunch of things done to it, which I will get to later on. But I thought I'd throw this one in the mix just as well. And when I say that I don't necessarily think that this guitar is 100% better than this guitar, I'm not being disparaging to Jet at all, because this guitar is still fantastic, but it stands to some reason that a £450 guitar might not be as good as a guitar that's twice its price. Like, that's not me slagging off Jet in the slightest, but let's see how close we can get to this. So the first thing we need to do from a sound comparison standpoint is just to understand what these guitars sound like on default. So what I've done is I've recorded various sound samples in various styles going through all 5 main pickup positions, and I've kept the volume and the tone knobs on full. I have recorded this, I've gone through my pedal board with my always on make good pedals, my EQ, my compressor, my tremolo and my delay. Pedants might complain that it's not getting the direct sound of the guitar, but also shut up, I've kept it consistent. I've gone through my Fender Blues Junior and my Vox AC10. Here are how they are mic'd. I've got room mics. Here are the settings as well of those amps. And for some extra consistency, I've also used the exact same plectrum on all 3 guitars, so pedants can't like come at me for like external variables. I've kept everything consistent, but they are different guitars. They are going to sound different, and that's the point. And here is what they sound like. Now you've heard what they sound like, a couple of caveats. So my Fenders are 3 single coil Strats, whereas the Jet is a HSS Strat. It's got a humbucker in the bridge. So the bridge is obviously going to sound different to my Fenders, but also shut up. You could argue that I could just split the coil on the Jet so that it can make for a more even comparison to the Fenders, but a split humbucker never sounds as good as an actual single coil. So it would just be unfair, so also shut up. They're different guitars. Unsurprisingly, these different guitars have different pickups in and thus are going to sound different. The American Strat has custom shop Texas Specials in. The Japanese Strat has Tex-Mex in, which are good pickups, if not quite as boutique, but they're still great. And then the Jet has some unspecified Alnico pickups. I took some readings of those, and here is a list of all the readings of the various guitars. Resistance-wise, this means that the pickups have got a similar output to them, which is surprising that a humbucker has a similar output to the Tex-Mex bridge pickup, but there we have it. However, what you might notice is that the neck pickup, the Jet, is the lowest output thereof, and what that usually means is that when you have a lower output, you usually get more high-end detail. And I think that is why the Jet has a lot of like top-end glassiness that I've spoken about before, especially in my original review, compared to the other guitars. The other caveat to make is that this guitar is a bit weird in that the second tone knob has been retrofitted as a blend knob for either the neck or the bridge pickup, depending on which position you're in. So going forward, I'm not going to really factor this into direct sound comparisons, but I just thought it was a fun extra horse to throw into the race. So now that we've compared the guitars on their default sound, now we can have some fun with tweaking settings to see how close we can get them. Let's stay on the neck pickup for the time being and just remind ourselves of what the Strat is like. Whereas the Jet's a bit more like this. Immediately, like, there's a lot of that top-end glassiness, and what I mentioned in my original review video was that if you take the volume and roll that back a bit, sort of 9, 8-ish, that actually reduces a lot of the treble. Now we're a little bit closer. What I might want to do here is just roll the tone back a little bit on this guitar and on this pickup. Now we're getting a little closer. Gonna roll the tone back a little bit more though. Starting to get quite similar there. But while we have got to this point now, I do think that the USA Strat has a little bit more bottom end, and there's not really something we can do here except for maybe raise the bass end of the pickup up slightly. I'm not going to do this to a guitar that's on loan to me, however that's something that you could do. Additionally, you could adjust the settings on your EQ pedal, you could adjust the settings on your amp by just popping a bit more bass in, and that might help round things out a little bit more, but still, we're in pretty close territory here. Additionally, when you are playing guitar, chances are you're not going to be just using the guitar and the amp. You're also probably going to have some pedals in there and in play. And when you start to use pedals, they do add their own sonic character to the overall picture, which takes away from the contribution of the guitar to that sonic picture. Put simply, if you stick on an overdrive pedal, they're going to sound a bit similar. I've stuck on the Wampler Paisley for this example. This is what it sounds like. They've started to get into much closer territories now at this point. Obviously, the Fender Strat sounds more like a Strat. It's made of alder, whereas this is made of mahogany and maple, which is more like a Les Paul kind of body construction. But still, like, we've gotten into some pretty close territory now with these. So despite the inherent differences between these two guitars in terms of their pickups and their body construction, their wood types, like, I've still managed to make these guitars remarkably close sonically to each other. In this case, by just rolling the volume back a little bit to reduce that top end glossiness, rolling the tone back a little bit, and doing a similar thing on the USA Strat as well, you're able to get these guitars sounding really similar to each other. Add to that the addition of an overdrive pedal, where that contributes its own solid sonic character to the whole sound. It becomes really difficult to pick these two out of a lineup together just from listening to it. The next key thing to consider is that music is best when it's played with other people. An electric guitar is best when it's played in a band context. So let's do some more sound samples, but this time we're going to look at the guitars with a blues backing track and see how close they sound now that we've got this in play. You've heard the guitars in their default setting, and you've heard how I've been able to tweak the settings on these guitars to bring them closer together, rolling down the volume, rolling down the tone a little bit, adding an overdrive pedal, and now by adding a backing track. When you do all of this, the guitars are basically indistinguishable from each other. So now that I've got both of these guitars sounding so closely similar to each other, especially in a band jamming context, would I, if given the option, replace my Fender Strat with the Jet JS600? No. So to explain the differences of this, it really gets into the nitty-gritty of musicians and the subtleties and the intricacies in musical instruments that make them really speak to us. And that's kind of where I'm at in terms of my USA Strat versus this Jet guitar. In terms of the feel, there are some really easily changeable things like strings. My Fender has 10s, the Jet has 9s. I prefer the feel of 10s. So obviously I can still change that and make the Jet feel a little bit closer, but also smaller details in the neck. I think it's a gloss finish that the neck has on the Fender, and it feels really nice and smooth to play. Whereas on the Jet, I think it's satin, but I could be wrong. And I feel the wood a little bit more, which, you know, is really pleasing for some people. It's a bit jarring for me. In terms of the sound, Fender all day, because the Texas Specials are just warmer and they're richer and they feel more boutique and responsive. Whereas I can get in similar territory with the Jet, but I prefer that I can just pick the guitar up, the Strat, and I can just get really into it really easily without having to find it. When I've played these guitars side by side, the Fender feels like home and the Jet feels like a weekend away. Like, it's a good holiday to take, and this is still really good for its price. And I'm not disparaging Jet in the slightest by saying that I like it, but not as much as a guitar that just is home to me. I pick the Fender up and I find myself not wanting to put it down, whereas the Jet, I can sometimes play it and spend a bit of time with it, but then I can have my fill. The Jet still absolutely has merit. If I was to keep it, and I'm not, this guitar's been loaned to me, I'm giving it back. If I was to keep it, I would change the pickups to something a little bit darker, a little bit warmer, because I like some of the glassy things of the pickups on here, but I do think it can be a little bit brittle. And that's where I'm at in the debacle of Fender versus Jet. The Jet is fantastic. It does the Strat thing really well, but I just love my American Fender a little bit more. You will hear takes from people online or in like Anderson's videos where they will say, someone listening to the record won't tell the difference. Someone going to your gig won't tell the difference in sound. And again, we've got these two really, really close to each other now, especially in a band context. But there is a point where you are not buying the instrument for the benefit of the audience listening, but you're buying it for yourself. In terms of how it sounds and feels, I just feel more comfortable and at home with my Fender than I do with the Jet. And I still love the Jet and I love what it's doing, but I just, you know, I'm a brand snob and I like my Fender. And in terms of how it feels with these intangibles, in terms of the sound at its default state, rather than trying to go search for something, I just feel a greater responsiveness out of this guitar, out of the box, compared to this guitar, which is half of its price also out the box. And, you know, they're still really great. And if you do find yourself on a slight budget and wanting an S-type guitar that still has a really good spec, I would still heartily recommend the Jet guitar over the Squier Classic Vibe, over the Fender Standard. But if you have the budget and you are looking around for American-made Fenders, then I don't blame you if you would prefer to go for this. And there you go, folks. That's it from me. In terms of this Strat battle, Jet versus Fender, I mean, it's not much of a surprise that the Fender wins. It's Fender. It's really, really good. But the Jet still absolutely gives it a good run for its money, and we're able to get them in really similar territories, which is really helpful for you guys if you are on a budget. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know which guitar you thought sounded better. Maybe it was the Japanese Strat. Maybe that was the one that kind of caught your eye. If you do play an S-type guitar, let me know which ones you've got. I'd be really interested to, at the very least, nerd out about gear with you guys. You can follow me on your favorite social media of choice at Marc Gallagher Music. Thank you to my supporters on Patreon for supporting the things I do. You guys can also do that and get your name read out at the end on the credits roll by going to patreon.com/Marc Gallagher Music. Until next time, my name's Marc Gallagher. Like the video if you want, share if you feel compelled to, and follow me on places. I'll catch you down the road.